Recording now. So yeah, we're recording. So thanks everyone for joining today's new Colombo Plan information session. It's great to see so many people here are interested, which is really encouraging to say that despite everything that's going on with COVID at the moment, we've still got a lot of people still interested in studying overseas. So that's really really rewarding for us to see that. If you've just come in, if you can put yourself on mute, that would be great, just so that we don't get any background noise. Fantastic. Thanks very much. And just a reminder to those latecomers that we are recording as well. So before we go too much further, I just want to acknowledge that we are hosting this session from the lands of the traditional owners of this area, which are the Wiradjuri people. So I also want to acknowledge, though, that there are the traditional custodians of the various lands from where you're all joining us today. So, and I just want to extend that welcome to any Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders with us now. And I want to pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging, and celebrate the diversity of those people and their ongoing connection to the culture, to the land and the waters where we are today. So thank you and welcome to everybody. Now, I'm just going to share my screen, so just make sure that that's up and going. So can everyone see that we've got that new Colombo Plan, and I'll get that out of the way, new Colombo Plan Scholarship up there? Yep, getting the thumbs up from everyone. Wonderful, that's great to see. So we'll jump straight in if I can get this to work. So basically, we want to let you know what the new Colombo Plan Scholarship is all about. I'm just going to quote straight from the new Colombo Plan Secretariat themselves, because they describe it best, but then I'll also summarise that into a bit of plain English for you as well. So the new Colombo Plan is a signature initiative of the Australian Government, which aims to lift the knowledge of the Indo Pacific in Australia by supporting Australian undergraduates to study and undertake internships in the region. It encourages a two-way flow of students between Australia and the rest of our region, complementing thousands of students from the region coming to Australia to study each year. The new Colombo Plan is intended to be transformational, deepening Australia's relationships in the region, both at the individual level and through expanding university, business and other links. The Australian Government wants study and work related experiences in the Indo Pacific to become a rite of passage for young Australians and undergraduate students. So essentially what that means is that we want our graduates and our students to be aware that they're part of a bigger picture than just our region in Australia and in New South Wales. So with that, the Australian Government is really encouraging to students to step outside of Australia and make those connections in the Indo Pacific. The Indo Pacific is our closest neighbour and all the regions within that, and so that sort of links to our trading and our economics and our politics as well. So that's where that connection comes from. Dylan will probably go into that a little bit further on what the connections were for him, but in a nutshell, it's about encouraging Australian students to undertake, sorry, I'm just letting someone else in who's just come in a bit late, allowing students to undertake international study opportunities that are fully supported by the Australian Government as well. So there are approximately 40 locations in the Indo-Pacific where you can undertake your study. So that's anywhere from Southeast Asia, Mongolia, and Cook Islands in the east. So it's really broad. You can see all the countries listed there and all the regions. So what we are encouraging our students who are interested in the scholarship to do is to think about where they want their studies to take them, if there's any particular interest in the regions that they have that links back to their study, or any particular interest in the regions that they have that relates to their professional or career development as well. So that's not to say that you're on your own when you're looking for a location. CSU Global Office is always here to help you sort of narrow down those choices, because I can imagine for all of you seeing a list of 40 countries might be a bit overwhelming. So it's something just to bear in mind now, and then as you go further through this process, we can drill down into those countries and regions for you. And of course, it's all about having a host location that can support study that's relevant to your discipline as well. So that's not to say that you know, a student who wants to go to Bhutan might not be able to if there's no university that can't support their study area. Which brings us to what you can study under the NCP scholarship. So the New Colombo Plan Scholarship allows you not only to undertake study in the region, but it also allows you to undertake language training and an internship. You don't have to do all three of those components, but it is strongly recommended that you do, just so that you can take advantage of everything that the scholarship has to offer you. Your study component, which is the academic component, needs to match the study that you would complete at CSU, because that's where you'll be transferring your credits. So if you were planning on undertaking your study in session 1, 2021, and that will be the earliest that you'll be able to start your scholarship, you should be looking at the CSU subjects that you're studying in that session, and then we link them to a university in that region that also is able to offer those studies. So you need to be able to study full-time at your host location. So at Sturt University, that's a minimum of 3 8-point subjects, or 24 credits, or 4 subjects. So that's the normal full-time load. Sometimes we have students who want to do a bit more than that, but we will sort of talk about that as we go along, but it's probably not recommended. We want you to be able to also really embed yourself in the culture, in the social life, and all the other things that living overseas has to offer. So we don't want you just bedded down in study. So for that reason, we don't encourage more than a full-time 4-subject study load. The language tuition has to be taken in country, so you can't do the language tuition before you leave Australia. You can certainly do your own language preparation, so that can be anything from signing up to Babbel to, you know, finding someone in country that can give you the basics. But the supported language tuition needs to be undertaken in country. Again, Sturt University and CSU Global can help you find a provider to do that. It's not a requirement of the scholarship. Sometimes you might find that you can't find a language provider in that country, so it's not going to be held against you if you can't do language tuition. So for example, our 2019 scholar Lacey went and studied in Bhutan, but unfortunately there was no language training provider in Bhutan that could support her. So she was still successful in getting her scholarship, which was great, and picked the language up through some sort of informal training through her host university. And then the internship is the other aspect to it. So the internship can be done prior to your study period, or it can be done during it, or it can be done afterwards. So the thing with the internship is, again, to try and link it to your study, but also your professional career aspirations as well. There might be organisations in that country that you'd really like to work with, or you can ask CSU Global or even the New Colombo Plan Secretariat to help link you with an internship provider as well. Again, once we hand over to Dylan, he'll be able to tell you about his internship. I think he actually ended up taking 2 internships, one inside the scholarship sort of requirements and one outside of that, but it was an offshoot of that scholarship, which is one of the great benefits of the scholarship, is that it can lead and jump you off into other areas as well. So yeah, so basically there's 3 main aspects to it: language training, study, and internship. Now, who should apply? So as much as we'd like to open the New Colombo Plan Scholarship up to everyone, there are criteria that has been set by the Australian government. So the essential ones are that you must be an Australian citizen. You have to be nominated for the scholarship by the home university, which means CSU Global or Sturt University nominates you to the NCP Secretariat. So that process is determined by the nomination form that you will fill out for CSU Global, and then CSU Global and a panel looks at those nominations that come in, and then we decide who goes further from that. If you haven't been in touch with CSU Global via email, you wouldn't have received that nomination form, but I can certainly send it out to anyone who's interested, and I'll put it up on the events page as well so that you can download it from there. It's not a really hard nomination form. Essentially, it just asks you for a bit of personal information about yourself, and it also asks you to address, I think, 3, possibly 4 questions that you will find in the formal scholarship application should you go ahead. So we'd just like to give you a bit of an indication of what the scholarship panel will be looking for by asking you to address it in the initial stages. Then if you move through to the next stage, we give you coaching on those answers as well to help you improve anything that you might need to work on. So you need to be nominated by Sturt University, you need to be an Australian citizen, you need to not be a citizen or permanent resident of the country of your primary or secondary location. So that means if you were looking at doing your study in Indonesia, you can't hold citizenship of that country as well. So you need to go somewhere where you don't have citizenship. You need to be enrolled in and undertaking a bachelor degree or bachelor honours degree. So essentially that means that you have to have study to complete in your bachelor degree at CSU in 2021 or 2022, because that's the study period where you'll most likely be going away. Now, the next one, the age criteria, has an asterisk next to it because the Secretariat is in the middle of perhaps changing that criteria, changing it for the better, not for the worse. So there's just a little asterisk there. So normally you need to be aged between 18 and 28 years of age. That's by the 1st of January 2021, but they're looking at increasing that to allow scholars who are between 29 and 30 if you're a non-Indigenous student, and if you're an Indigenous student they're looking at raising that to the ages of between 29 and 35. So that's just a recognition that, especially in regional universities, not all students fall in that stereotypical undergraduate, 18 to 28 age group. So thanks to lobbying of the universities, we're getting through and we're lifting that little criteria bit by bit. So yeah, if you see that criteria listed everywhere else and you're actually a little bit older, just come back to us and we can double check that for you. But it's basically the upper limit is 30 for non-Indigenous and 35 for Indigenous students. They're also looking for students who have achieved a minimum 70% graded average at the time of submitting your application. That's got a little asterisk as well because there are some minor changes to that. So at CSU, we don't use that grading terminology. We use GPAs of 4.5, 6 and so on. So we've calculated 70% to be pretty much the same as a grade point average of 5. So that's normally the minimum that we're looking at. However, the Secretariat has also acknowledged that this year has been completely disruptive to students, and that for various reasons, but mainly due to COVID and the implications of that, that students might find that their grades get affected adversely during this session. So they will consider students that haven't reached that requirement. You'll be required to submit another reference on top of the 2, and I'll go into that a little bit later. So you will have to provide an additional reference to just acknowledge and support your endeavours thus far, and to really reinforce that you are a deserving student who's just encountered some sort of hurdles along the way. And we also acknowledge that at the time of you nominating yourself to CSU Global, you might not have received your 2020-30 grades back yet. So that means that you've probably still got a TA on all your current session grades. So they might come back afterwards and they might lift you above that 70% average. So don't worry too much about that at this stage, and certainly come back to us if you've got more questions about that. You can't have received a scholarship from the NCP before. You can have received an NCP mobility grant. So I don't know if any of you have been on a CSU Global international program before and have received some sort of financial assistance through NCP. It's just that you can't have received a scholarship. So that means someone like Dylan can't receive the scholarship again. And you can't be an employee of DFAT. So I don't know how many that would apply to, but hopefully not too many here. Another question that we often get is what the scholarship covers. We can't give you an exact amount because it will vary between students. The reasons that it will vary because you might be going to a different location. You could be paying tuition fees to your host university rather than to CSU. You might be doing language, you might not be doing language, you might be doing an internship, you might not be. So there's different types of stipends that are available to students depending on the type of experience they're undertaking. But essentially, what should be covered is your study component. So that's your tuition fees at your host university if you have to pay them. It will cover your language training, a travel allowance, an establishment allowance, which means and Dylan's probably better to correct me later on if I'm wrong, that means just setting you up in country just once you're there. A scholarship allowance, which is like a monthly stipend, I think. Is that right, Dylan? You can just unmute yourself if you want.
Yeah, that's right, Alice. So you get the scholarship allowance is just a monthly payment of, when I was doing the scholarship, $2,500.
Great. Yeah. A mental health allowance if you need access to any mental health services while you're away. So yeah, to put an amount on that is a bit too tricky, but I guess in the past they've said that the scholarship can be awarded to students to the value of up to over $20,000. So that depends on what your costs are in country. On top of that, there are other benefits. So you are provided with insurance through DFAT. You're allocated a case manager who can help you out throughout the whole experience, and private sector sponsorship. If there are organisations or industries in country where you're going, they might extend some sponsorship money to you as well. So I hope I haven't overwhelmed or lost anyone yet. Try not to rabbit on too much longer. I don't think we've got too far to go. So the application process is 3-stage. So the first stage is that you complete the nomination form that CSU Global provides you, and you provide that back to us by the 3rd of July. Then the second is that CSU then goes through those nominees, and we nominate normally 10 students to their secretariat, but because of that changed age condition, we're allowed to nominate 3 more students above that age criteria. So we can nominate up to 13 students to go through to the secretariat to complete the formal online application. And then after that, the NCP will go through the application. CSU Global and Sturt University and all the universities are taken out of the equation. The NCP Secretariat assesses all those online applications. And if they want to hear more from you, they'll invite you to an interview. So the interview is the last stage of the application process. So 3rd of July is CSU's deadline. 18th of August is the NCP deadline. And then interviews occur from September through to October, and you should be you should be advised of the outcome of your application by November. And then that's when we sort of kick in again and start planning and organising your session to start, which can start as early as January 2021, but it can be later than that, depending on what time of the year you wanted to go as well. So there is various assessment criteria. So these 4 questions are the 4 questions that you'll be given on your nomination form. We go by the same weighting. In the nomination, we give you approximately, I think, a 300-word limit to cover all the answers. At the nomination stage, we can't provide you with assistance on how to answer the questions. Essentially, that's because we're assessing you, so we can't give you the answers and then assess you on the answers when they come in. So you're certainly welcome to seek advice from other scholars, from peers, from academics, from anyone else that might be a mentor to you, and ask them for their advice. But they're essentially the 4 questions that you'll be assessed on. And they're the 4 questions that should be in the online application to the NCP as well. In addition to that, there will be a requirement to provide references. As I mentioned a bit earlier, if you're above that normal age criteria, you'll have to provide an additional reference as well. And anyone who goes through to the next stage will have to undergo a police check as well. The reason for that is mainly that when you're applying for your visa to study overseas, many countries and universities will require a police check as part of their application process. So the NCP wants to know, get on the front foot of that and know beforehand whether students would be eligible to apply for a visa based on the NCP, on the police check. That is not to say if you have a criminal record, that is not to say that you won't be considered for the scholarship. It just can be taken into account, but it doesn't exclude you. So if there is anything on your record, you're welcome to discuss that with CSU Global privately, but it's not necessarily going to exclude you from the process. Oh, we just got one latecomer coming in. Hi, sorry, I missed the name of whoever's come in late, and I'm sorry that we had to kick off without you, but the session is being recorded, so we'll put that on the Facebook page later on to let you catch up to what you've missed out on, but I will keep going. I'm at the end, basically. Essentially what I wanted to say in finishing up for the CSU Global component is we're here to support you. We are incredibly proud of all of our students. The students that we've had be successful as NCP, not only scholars but nominees as well. We really value their time and their input and know that they are really deserving students. So we want to be here to support you through the process as much as we can and as much as you need. So don't be afraid to come to us whenever you need to ask questions, but also don't be afraid to reach out to our NCP scholars. Dylan has the official title of NCP Ambassador, so he can certainly be your first point of call, but we've got scholars from other years as well who are equally happy to help you out with your application as well. So just make sure that you're aware that we have plenty of people here to help you. Just wanted to end with our little proud parent photo down the bottom there. That's Louise and I attending last year's NCP Scholarship Awards ceremony. So it's just hopefully a little bit of a visual reminder to you that we do, you know, try and nurture you through this. So you've probably got parents of your own who are going to do that, but you've got some surrogate parents here at CSU to help you out as well. So thank you. I'll open it up to questions now before we kick over to Dylan. I just can't work out. I'm going to stop sharing my screen as well just for the time being. Okay, so I think we covered everything. Yep, Ryu certainly will make the slides available for you to go through later on. Kiara, I hope we've answered those questions, but let me know if we missed anything. Has anyone else got a question that follows from that? Yes, Georgia, I'll put it up on the Facebook page, but also, yeah, the email address will be on the nomination form. So you just email it back to us. That's great. Okay. We'll keep putting your questions up if anything comes in, but I'm going to hand over to Dylan now and put myself on mute for a minute and let you take it away, Dylan.
Awesome. Hey everyone. So it's great to have you all here today, and congratulations, because obviously you are all receiving some good grades and are eligible to apply for the new Colombo Plan Scholarship, hopefully. I'm just going to share my screen. From the beginning. Okay, so before I get started, I'd just like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land which I speak from today, the Wiradjuri people, and check that everyone can hear me okay, Alice? Yeah, awesome. So as Alice mentioned, I'm a previous New Colombo Plan scholar and am now the New Colombo Plan alumni ambassador for Sturt University. So pretty much I'm here to help you guys and support you through the application process and your whole New Colombo Plan journey. I'll start with saying that the New Colombo Plan Scholarship Program is an incredible opportunity for Australian undergraduate students to undertake really transformational study experiences in the Indo Pacific region. Before I was a scholar, I didn't know the importance of the Indo Pacific region in context to Australia, but there's a lot of government priority now in lifting knowledge amongst young people of our closest neighbours. So I was like you guys, probably a couple of weeks ago, you received an email from C2 Global saying that you have you're maybe eligible to apply for the New Colombo Plan Scholarship. I didn't know much about the New Colombo Plan Scholarship when I received that email. It looked like a very cool opportunity, but I also realized that was quite a prestigious scholarship, which it definitely is, but don't let that put you off applying for it, because you definitely have real good chance of receiving a scholarship if you put out a good application. So I put in my nomination form to C2 Global and made it through that stage, and then I had to apply to DFAT, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and it was similar to the nomination form. You just have to address those criteria, and yeah, I'm happy to help support you all through that application process as best I can. So for my scholarship program, I'll start off with saying I'm a Bachelor of Agricultural Science honours student based at Wagga campus. I was in my third year when I applied for it, so I only had 1 year left of uni, and my last year was either placements or honours. So I kind of had to do my honours if I was to be eligible for the scholarship. So I didn't really do the semester exchange where I had to just enroll in classes. I was actually undertaking research, which was a bit different. But as part of the scholarship, you have to undertake at least one face-to-face class. So during my time, I did undertake some classes. I travelled to Papua New Guinea. So I'll go to the next slide. I commenced my time in Papua New Guinea with an internship with Newcrest Mining. So some scholars will actually be enough to be sponsored. There's a private sector sponsors who sponsor some scholars, and they pretty much just provide scholars with internship opportunities and some more support. So in terms of financial support and opportunities. So that's just another benefit of the New Colombo Plan. That internship was it was really cool. So I did that for 6 weeks. I was part of working with their social performance and external affairs team, just on this mining project side in the middle of PNG kind of highlands. It was really remote. Got to work a lot with the community and local villages, and it was a great experience to really immerse myself in local culture and gain some understanding of work environment within a different country. To skip forward a bit, I then also did an internship with the Australian High Commission with Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade in Solomon Islands. That was in January to March this year, so pretty much 3 months, just 2.5 months before COVID started. That was an awesome experience too, and that internship wasn't planned in my initial scholarship application, because you kind of set out your plan when you apply to DFAT, but while you're doing your scholarship program, it's very flexible and you can add other components as you kind of undertake your experience. So there's just some photos of my time. This is one of the villages I went to in Solomon Islands. These photos here. This one, I was planting some taro with the local community there. And just another photo from PNG when I visited a cocoa research institute as part of my internship with Newcrest. And then on the right there is I went on a week-long mission during my internship with DFAT in Solomon Islands, where I got to, because during that internship I learned a lot about how it's managed and where the money's put. So I got to do some work on development programs, and just in front of me there's a kindergarten class which Australian helped fund in a rural community. So you get to see some really cool places, and yeah, it's really good that way. My study component, so you can do up to 2 semesters or 2 sessions of study in one of the countries. Well, one in your primary host location. So I did mine in PNG at the Papua New Guinea University of Technology, and here is where I did my semester exchange. I undertook my honours research, and I also did language training. So as part of the New Colombo Plan Scholarship, along with the study component and the internship component, there's the language component, which is an awesome opportunity to really learn another language while you're in country, which is important so you can help communicate to people. And yeah, it's a really vital skill to have. So it wasn't really a formal language training I did there. So I kind of arranged it once I was in country. I just organized a tutor within the university, and we just had one-on-one sessions, and it was really flexible and easy to do. And yeah, that's all covered through the New Colombo Plan. This is just a picture of the front of my university, the sign there. You can see it was a dirt road. The roads are pretty bad. That little buses I was catching sometimes, and then I was in here. I formed the class I enrolled in. It was pretty much just a field trip class. So I went on a week-long field trip throughout the highlands of PNG, and these are just some of my classmates. So I got to know them really well and share plenty of stories. It was really interesting. Here's just another photo of my group. Behind us was tea plantations. And then this was towards the end of my study component. We all had to do presentations on our research project. So I did a little presentation on my honours research. And then these photos are on campus at the university I was at, just on PNG Independence Day. So as you can see, it's a great opportunity to meet people from other countries and become good friends, and really share with them what life is like in Australia, and also learn from them. So it's really about New Colombo Plan really has a focus on creating people-to-people links and establishing networks across the region, which you can then draw from in the future, and really improve the relationship between Australia and our closest neighbours. So PNG is actually it's Australia's closest neighbour. And it's important to know that it really is a culturally immersive experience. And if you manage your time pretty well, you usually have a lot of time to do traveling within your host location and getting to experience the local lifestyle and culture and customs and things like that. So here's just some photos of me doing that. Okay, so I guess you're all here today trying to figure out if the New Colombo Plan is for you and why you should apply. So I've just put down a couple of dot points. So you develop both professionally and personally new skills that set you apart from the rest. The New Colombo Plan, it's getting pretty well recognized now. So I know some jobs you apply for now, they see that you've kind of undertaken a New Colombo Plan experience. They know you have all these kind of soft skills that are really valued in the workplace since you've undertaken this study abroad experience. You'll also establish enduring networks, experience new cultures, learn new languages, and gain new perspectives, which was a big one for me. I really gained new perspectives, and you get to see things in a different way. And Yeah, so all that comes with it. You get to contribute towards pursuing Australia's national interest, and it opens up windows to opportunities you otherwise wouldn't know existed. So yeah, it's definitely opened up a lot of opportunities for me. Even the internship I did with DFAT in Solomon Islands wasn't anything I could have previously imagined that I'd be doing. So that was, yeah, one of the opportunities that came from it. That's just a photo of me in the corner with Julie Bishop, who is, some of you might know, the former Australian Foreign Affairs Minister, and she was the one who actually founded the New Colombo Plan back in 2014. So yeah, that photo was taken at the New Colombo Plan Scholarship Award ceremony, which is held in Parliament House usually. Tips for the application process. So don't be daunted by the application process. It is quite a long process, and you kind of have to really think about what you want to do and stuff. But as long as you be your authentic self, know the New Colombo Plan, and be able to effectively communicate how you contribute to its goals and objectives is a big thing. Not just how it will benefit you, but how you will contribute to it. On the website, I think it all has listed the objectives and stuff. So it's good to just get familiar with them. So then it helps with the application, especially the last criteria when you need to say how you'll contribute to the New Colombo Plan. Yeah, so just address each criteria carefully, seek support. Throughout my application process, I had plenty of support from C2 Global and also the Charles Sturt Career Development Office. They can help you draft up some application responses, and also if you, which is hopefully if all of you get to the interview stage, or 10 of you or 13, however many we are nominating, if you get to the interview stage, they can help you with some mock interviews, which I found very helpful. And demonstrate that you are open-minded, curious, and willing to challenge yourself, especially when you get to if you get to the interview stage and in your written responses. And focus on demonstrating your potential. So you don't really, if you haven't, well, like university students, a lot of us haven't probably done too much in the past to kind of like, we don't really have the best resume in a way, but the NCP Secretariat know that. They just want to kind of learn about your aspirations and see your potential. So really draw from that. There's also some great resources online and on YouTube videos where they provide some tips for the application process, which I find really helpful. And then after your New Colombo Plan Scholarship Program, there's plenty of opportunities when you return to Australia. So I myself, I'm an alumni ambassador now. So I got to go to Canberra last year and meet a lot of other past scholars and learn from them. And yeah, it increases your employability because you have all these new skills and experiences, and you're also more open to undertaking different opportunities to what you probably were first. It like opens your mind a bit to all these different pathways you can take. Especially if you want to engage in the Indo Pacific space in the future, it's definitely a great opportunity to establish some networks in the region, which you can then draw upon when you get back to Australia, if you want to return to the region and do some work. The exclusive alumni events and opportunities. So yeah, there's conferences, and the last few months in the COVID-19 situation, the NCP have been holding a lot of online webinars with guest speakers and stuff to just discuss issues affecting Australia, and yeah, heaps of really cool, informative webinars that are exclusive to NCP alumni. And yeah, so plenty of opportunities to come from that. So I'm just about to graduate my degree, and I'm applying for some jobs now that I never thought I would really be considering to apply for. So yeah, it really opens up opportunities for you. So I guess I just want to say thank you for listening today, and good luck with it. And I'll be here to support you all throughout the way. I think Alice will provide probably my email address with you. I'm on all social media, and I've got, if you want to see more about my experience, I've got plenty of pictures up on my Instagram and things like that if you want to check that out. But I'll stop sharing my screen, and if you have questions, please just put it in the chat, or yeah, if you want to, you can unmute yourself and ask a question if you want to.
Thanks, Dylan. There are quite a few written questions, so we'll go through them first. Sorry, I was replying and then I realised I was replying just to one person, so the rest of you didn't see the answer. So it's easy if I talk them through, probably, then everyone will know. So I think, Georgia, we covered your question about the nomination form, so we can send that out to you, or I'll put it on the Facebook page. Nyama, sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly, you don't study online through CSU. Your study component is undertaken face-to-face at a host location, a host university in your host country. So you definitely travel overseas and you study through that university. Your study that you do there is then transferred back to your CSU degree as a transfer of credit grade. Augustine, what point do we need to nominate the university? At the nomination stage, you just need to be quite specific in the country that you want to go to, and that's true for the application stage as well. It is helpful to have a second backup country in mind. You don't have to have formally applied to any university or anything like that, but to have a second location just in case your first doesn't work out is always a good idea. Your host university doesn't have to be confirmed at the nomination stage. That can take a little while to work out, simply because it's a matter of sometimes negotiating through Charles Sturt University to a university that you'd like to study at, to get that contact and get that negotiation going. So at the nomination stage, at least know your country, and then we can work with you to work out the best university in that location for you. How many scholarships are usually awarded?
So in my age group, and I think it's pretty consistent now, about 120, 125. Yeah, so yeah, in the past, it's usually been each university can nominate 10 people. From there, they cut it down probably about half to come for interview in Canberra. This year, the interviews are going to be online, probably, most likely. And then, from there, it's usually about 120, 125.
Thank you. Who is next? Can you reside overseas and take a family member with you? I will have to come back to you on that one. I mean, certainly if you're a CSU student and you're already living overseas, you're eligible to apply for the program. You then move to your host country for your scholarship term. Can you take family members? You may be able to, but I don't think you can receive any financial support through the Secretariat for the costs of bringing your family. So, for example, they will help you with accommodation costs for yourself, but they can't extend that to other family members. Also bear in mind that if you're taking family members with you, if it's children, you have to bear in mind, will you be able to, put them in a school or obtain childcare and all those sorts of things that would naturally go along with having your children with you. If it's a partner, I don't know that there's anything to say no, but I'd have to follow that up. Will you complete your semester online? I think we covered that, but it will be at your host university, so not online. Should, for any reason, the COVID travel restrictions still be in place in 2021, we really hope that they're not going to be, and sort of the signs are that it should be back to as close to normal as possible by January next year. But it is recommended that you be able to extend your study into 2022 if that happens, or at least into session 2 2021. So we don't really want to be having a new Colombo Plan Scholarship program where students are still in Australia but studying online at a host university, simply because you don't get that truly immersive experience that comes from the scholarship. Can you only do an internship? No, you have to have a study component attached to your scholarship as well. You can do study and an internship only. You can skip the language, but you have to at least have the study component. You can have that just as your only component if you want to. Bree, you're doing criminal justice. We have had a successful criminal justice scholar under the NCP program. They were due to undertake their scholarship in Cambodia, but have had to postpone it due to COVID. But they're doing mainly I think they're doing their psychology. They're doing a psychology major, so they're doing the psychology study over there. But yes, short answer is yes, criminal justice students can undertake programs overseas. But this goes for everybody. It's easiest if you can do your more generic subjects overseas. So if you're say criminal justice student, if you've got sociology subjects, they're more transferable from overseas institutions rather than trying to do, Australian psychological statistics, because that's quite a niche program and is often only specific to Australia. So if you can do your more generic subjects overseas, that's the easiest way to do it. But we understand that some of you have to follow a set study pattern as well. But again, we can work through that with you if you want to follow up and take that forward. Georgia, I think, again, this goes back to an earlier question about the nomination form. I'll put that up online after this, and I can also email it out to anyone who wants it. Claire Lacey, who was a scholar at the same time as Dylan, she was an environmental science student. So definitely the scholarship is available, and we have successful scholars from the environmental science school. She studied in Bhutan, so you can follow that pathway, or you can sort of forge your own pathway and choose another university in another country, but definitely open to environmental science students. In regard to internships, again, just because there's no resources currently listed for a specific cohort of students doesn't mean that internship won't be available. We will work with you, NCP can work with you to find an internship that's relevant. And if unfortunately we can't find an internship for you, you can still be successful in your scholarship program anyway. Kiara, creative industries, again, there would be definitely options available for you. I can't think off the top of my head where I would recommend for you at the moment, but that's a good question to ask yourself as well. Is there a country that you'd really like to explore? In your industry, creative industries, is there a sector that's really growing in one of these regions that you'd like to follow up? Or are there any leaders in the region that you'd like to potentially work with or study at a university that's a leader in that field? The mock interviews, yeah, definitely available to distance education students. I think last year all our mock interviews were run online through the careers service, like Dylan said.
Yeah.
Paul Wardsfield there is great, and he can do those with you. They do them with students all the time, regardless of whether you're a scholarship applicant or otherwise. So that service is available to you as a student anyway, but certainly take advantage of it. It's a real help. Dylan can probably attest to that better than I can.
Yeah, definitely available for distance students. They have a software called Interview Stream, I think, where you can have practice interviews with a whole set of questions, and then all the questions that the career development office will give you, and then you can just record it, and then it can be sent off to them. So you don't have to do them live, and then they can review it in their own time, or you can organize to do like a live mock interview kind of thing too. They're really supportive.
Thank you. Madeline, I'm not sure if I'm understanding your question correctly, so feel free to take yourself off mute and clarify it if you need to. Even though CCU is trimester based, we would be looking for students who want to go away in either session 1 or session 2. Most universities overseas often operate on a 2-semester basis as well. You will find that when you look at universities, their term dates won't exactly align with ours as far as the academic session does, but with the holidays on either side, it actually works out perfectly. So it's really hard to explain how it works in a short answer. But yeah, we'd probably be looking at just having you be away for either session 1 or session 2, or you can actually nominate to be away for a whole year if you want to as well. You can do study for up to 2 semesters. But Madeline, if that's not clear, do you want to just take yourself off mute and let me know?
No, that's what I was asking, so that
Great.
works.
Thank you. Where are we up to? Can you be nominated twice?
Just
Yes.
Catherine's question.
Oh, sorry, Catherine, lots
Yep.
of support in the uni. No, we don't want you to be on your own through this. We want you to give you all the support you need. That's not only through CSU Global Office, it's also through the careers services as well. It's through our ambassadors. NCP offers support through lots of online videos and so on. And last year we had the services of the Global Society, which I don't know if they're rerunning them again, but if they do, we'll certainly put you in touch with the Global Society as well. So yeah,
as
on your own.
As a new Colombo Plan scholar, you're really going to get like the best support out of anyone wanting to do exchange. You get given your own case manager who helps support you organize your study and everything. So while you're in country, you can always talk to your case manager. And then the university I was at, Unitech over in PNG, all the admin and everyone there was very supportive. So yeah, you're very well supported in my experience.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and I should have said that extends to while you're on the program as well. You have the support there. But yeah, to Claire, yes, you can be nominated more than once. CSU Global doesn't have a policy on how many times, so as long as you're a student, you can nominate yourself every year, and if you're successful in moving through, then it's up to the next round of panel to decide whether that application at that time will move through to the next process. Dylan, this is a question for you. How was your university experience in Papua New Guinea? How was it compared to your Australian experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's a big part of the New Colombo Plan. You get to see and experience university in a different country. It was definitely very different to studying back home in Australia. If you're doing classes, I know in PNG, it's like thing called island time. Sometimes the lecturers wouldn't come or class wouldn't start when it was meant to start. So that was a bit different. The facilities were different. So don't really expect, and this goes to a lot of Indo Pacific countries, like infrastructure and facilities aren't usually up to the standard of what they are in Australia. So you kind of have to be a bit open-minded with what you're going to experience there and that. But yeah, no, it was a very good experience, and I found the students were really friendly. Yeah, it's different, but in a good way.
Thank you. Madeline, you can be in your last year of study when you undertake your scholarship. That's absolutely fine, and we've put through students who've been nominated and been successful in gaining the scholarship in their last year. I guess 2021 is a little bit different in that we don't know what the mobility space is going to be like next year. So the Secretariat has asked that students be, I guess, mindful that if their scholarship is postponed, they would like you to undertake it in 2022 instead, but that doesn't mean that they're going to force you into that. So they would like to see students who are not in their final year, but that's not to say that, again, you can't be successful.
Yeah. I was in my final year when I applied for it and got it. I think it's definitely trying to have a bit of flexibility and open mind. The New Colombo Plan is such a great opportunity if you were lucky to get the scholarship to perhaps do an extra semester at the end, or push your study back a little if it fit it in with what you're wanting to achieve. So I was meant to graduate end of last year, but I'm graduating end of this semester instead. So I did an extra half a year just to fit in my New Colombo Plan program.
Great, thank you. And if you have that flexibility, that's fantastic. But we also don't want to be making students extend their CSU degree, because that's, you know, not our intention. And you probably will be excited if you're due to graduate in 2021 to do that. One thing to bear in mind is, if you do undertake your scholarship in the last session of 2021, you will most likely miss your graduation date, because most universities overseas, their academic session runs until, in the second session, from approximately August to late December, early January, which means that our graduation ceremonies are held in December. So you'll still be studying at your host university while your cohort is graduating. So that is really important to bear in mind, that if you were thinking of going in your last session of your degree, we will by all means support that, as long as you understand that that means missing your graduation ceremony. When you come back, when you finished your session in January, you'll receive your host university transcript, and we'll transfer that into your CSU degree, and then you'll, you know, you'll have, you know, essentially completed all your degree requirements, but your next graduation ceremony would be in 2022. Catherine, I don't know how that links to your initial question. Sorry, I can't scroll up to see what you said. You're talking about the host country, host university.
That was just about the support that the host university,
Yeah, so host universities have the same staff in their universities as all universities in Australia have as well. So you certainly have those support services there. Can students be placed in the same place doing the same or similar course? In theory, yes. We probably wouldn't suggest that you, in your application, say that you want to be placed with your friend or your colleague or so on, but there's no reason why that can't happen. But we are looking for students who are resilient and independent. So as much as we'd love you to be able to undertake the experience with someone else and share it with someone else, that can't be guaranteed. Augustine, is education possible? I think you mean an education degree. Can you undertake education subjects overseas? If you want to take yourself on mute and clarify that, that's great. It is possible, if you're an education student, to undertake some of your education subjects overseas. It is more difficult to align them with the CSU curriculum though, so we can do it. It takes a little bit more research, so just be prepared to put in a little bit, probably more effort than some other students might have to do, but it is a possibility. The only hurdle you might come across is if you have compulsory session 3 study in your degree, because there's too much of a crossover between the host university session and our session for you to be able to fit them in independently. So that can be a bit tricky. But if you want to catch up with me offline, we can talk through that in a way that makes sense, because I'm not making sense now. But does that help a little bit?
Yeah, that does. That'd be good. Thanks.
No worries. Best place for animal science student studies. Georgia, I don't have a good answer for that. I'll just keep coming back to, is there a, you know, species that you would really want to work with? Is there research in a particular area that you're really interested in? Have a quick Google and see if there's universities in the Indo Pacific that are leaders in this field, that can be leaders in research or leaders in just the degrees that they offer. But certainly when you're looking at host universities, go onto their website, have a look at their courses, and it can be a bit confusing looking at other universities' websites and trying to interpret their information. But I would suggest you don't have to find an exact degree that is exactly named the same as a CSU degree. So you might want to look at zoology, you might want to look at veterinary, you might want to look at animal studies, those sorts of things, because essentially you're matching subjects. You don't have to match a degree specifically. So, but again, come to CSU Global and we can do some of that research with you as well. iPhone. Not sure who iPhone is, but yeah, there'd be universities in the South Pacific. I don't know of any CSU alumni that have done a communication study in the Indo Pacific, but Dylan might have some connections there that he can reach out to his cohort and his alumni and find out for you. But there would definitely be universities, depending where in the South Pacific you're thinking of. I know University of the South Pacific in Fiji is quite a big university that has hosted scholars before, so that might be a good one to start with. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, a lot of NCP scholars study at the University of the South Pacific, so definitely look into that institution.
Okay, thank you.
Good question, Claire. So you've asked if all the lectures are in English. Yes, so when you're looking at the host university, you should be looking for courses or subjects that are offered in English. We don't expect you to be fluent at an academic level in your host country language, so you will be studying classes in English. You can take optional classes in other languages if you want to, but the majority of your classes would be taken in English. And Naima, sorry if I pronounced that wrong as well, a medical science student. Again, we would be recommending that you're choosing those more generic science subjects rather than ones that have any links to your professional accreditation requirements. So anything that is very Australian specific, you should probably study here. Anything that's more generic, such as, I don't know, Biology 101, look for a university that's able to offer those more generic medical science subjects rather than anything more niche than that, or any sort of core subjects that require accreditation. So I think we're at the end of those questions, and we've just run over time as well. So thanks everyone for hanging in there a bit longer. I've got longer. I can hang around and answer more questions if you like. Okay, you've come too far in your degree. No, again, come back to me via email or offline, and I can have a better chat with you, but we can see what we can do for you. But yeah, I was just going to say, I can hang around for a bit longer. I don't know, Dylan, if you have to stay, but we'll post this up as soon as we finish the recording. We'll put it up on Facebook, and our email address is csu global@csu.edu.au, which is all over our website, but email me through that email address as well, and we'll get back to you with any other more specific questions.
Thanks everyone for coming, and hopefully that's inspired you to consider applying for the scholarship. And yeah, good luck, and feel free to reach out whenever you want.
Yeah. Yep, that goes for us too. I would just say that the first step is to have a look at the nomination form and have a go at it. We don't want you not to nominate because you think, I'm not going to get it. There's so many students who don't really realise that they have as much potential as everyone else out there. We all tend to be a bit conservative in our estimations of our achievements. So if you have an interest, take it that little step further. The other thing that you probably should do as well, and I should have mentioned this earlier, sorry, is to get in touch with your course director. You can do that through Student Central, or we can help link you with your course director, just to make sure that a semester of study abroad can be supported within your degree. So that goes for people like education students, like the medical science students. If you're at a point in your degree where you don't have the flexibility of studying overseas, your course director is the best person to give you that advice, because they know your degree and your requirements. So sorry that I didn't mention that earlier. Claire, rough number of CSU students are normally eligible. Our email, I think our invitation that hopefully you all got, went out to approximately 600 students this year. So that's the sort of the cohort that we're looking at that met the eligibility criteria and were in those range of courses that we knew were more likely to be able to study overseas. So there was probably more students who have a great GPA and are Australian citizens, but we also narrowed it down through courses as well. So don't let that put you off though. As I said, if you're interested, take the next stage. The next stage might be sending an email, or it might be completing your nomination form, and then you let someone else make a decision. Don't take the decision out of your hands yet.
Yeah. Kiara just had a question too above that. Is it possible to do a subject that doesn't really relate to your course?
There's two answers to that. Both are yes. One answer is if you've got electives in your degree, then certainly your course director again will be able to determine whether they will allow you to take that as an elective subject, and it would be transferred to your CSU studies as an elective subject. The other option is that you study it overseas, but you don't receive any transfer of credit for it. So what that means is you study it overseas, you get that reflected in your host university transcript, but it doesn't come over to your CSU transcript. So you're doing it for general interest, professional development, etc., but not for academic credit. Catherine, we'll send out the nomination form to anyone who emails us, and I'll also put it up online in the events page as well. I didn't want to put it up earlier because I didn't want to freak anyone out with the questions. So hopefully just going through everything a bit today has made you realise that it's not as scary as it might look when you first have a look at it. New Zealand is not part of the Indo Pacific. I'm sorry, Georgia. I know lots of people are really interested because that looks like the first border that's going to open up. And universities have been asking the same question, but because we have some reciprocal education arrangements with the New Zealand government, we can't count it under the scholarship arrangements. So there's no reason why you can't actually study in New Zealand as a CSU student and do that yourself as a study abroad student, but not under the scholarship program. Fiji is one of the Indo Pacific countries, so yep, definitely an option there.
Yeah, the University of South Pacific's the main one in Fiji.
Yeah. And I think that has a couple of campuses as well, so depending on what you want to do. There you go. Thanks, Claire. Claire's put up a link for us all.
Yeah,
And
40 countries.
Yeah, it's in the slides as well. If anyone didn't join us at the beginning, the slides from this presentation that I'll put up as well show you all the places that you can go. Some, really amazing places out there that you might not have thought of before. So, yeah, if you really want to be adventurous, tip your toe into some of those places.
And yeah, you can definitely go to more than one host, like more than one location. So you can do an internship. You have your host location for study, and then you can also undertake internships in another country if you want to do that.
In regard to universities that are leading in certain areas, CSU Global can help with this. We can reach out to other universities in our network and ask them if they've had students study overseas and where they've had them study before from certain degrees. Also, as I mentioned, sometimes a quick Google search, you look at university rankings, etc., and they will definitely be loud and proud in what they're doing well in, and they should have it up online as well. That is probably the hardest part of this process, I think, is choosing your university. I don't know that Dylan would have ever thought he was studying at his university or even New Guinea when
you can all,
the conversation.
Yeah, when I first started the conversation, I just kind of got to ask some academics and just to see what connections Charles Sturt and the School of Ag kind of had with other universities, and then kind of went from there. So really draw from your networks and your academics and peers, and if you need to find out which options there are. And then, independent research is really handy. So,
fantastic. Okay, well, I think we're going to leave it there, except we've got couple more questions coming in. Good question, Claire. Yeah, in regard to your achievements, you can put in high school achievements if you didn't leave, if you left school only a year or so ago. But if you've been in university, or I should say, if you've been out of high school for probably 5 years or more, they're really looking for something more recent. So that's where you should be looking, something more recent. But if you've got a really good, something you're really proud of that you did do when you were a high school student, by all means make note of it, because we don't want you to leaving something out that is particularly significant to you. But just bear in mind that they are looking for recent achievements as well. You'll be surprised what you might be able to put down as achievement. It doesn't necessarily mean that you got a certificate or an award for it. It can be a personal achievement where you've overcome something quite testing for you personally. So it's sometimes a matter of sort of reframing the word achievement and looking at other areas of your life where you've had some good success.
Yeah. I know in my application, I did briefly mention about, like captainship and stuff in high school. I kind of used it to say that I started leadership from like when I was young, and then I've developed further since then. And then I just did a couple of other examples. So you can kind of use that as a base if you want, and then build further from there.
Accommodation can be with your host university. Lots of universities prefer their international students to live on campus, but you can often have the option of living off campus. That can be in private accommodation, or you can also look at host families as well. So depending on what the requirements of your host university are, could mean that yes, you can live off campus with a host family, but some will also have a stipulation that you live on campus. That's mostly for security reasons, to make sure that they're providing their students with all the support and services that they need, but lots are more flexible than that as well. Your grades are not transferred as a score back to your degree. You'll receive a TCR grade. So that means if you've studied 4 subjects overseas, you'll get 4 TCR grades. I don't know if any of you have received credit for any other study in your CSU degrees, but you will notice that when you apply for credit, you get recognition that you've completed that subject, but you don't get a score. So essentially what that means is if you leave for your scholarship with a GPA of 5, after you've completed your scholarship and have had those subjects transferred to your CSU degree, you will still have a GPA of 5. So it keeps your GPA the same, but it doesn't give you the opportunity to lift your GPA if you were hoping to do so. So that's particularly probably relevant to people who might be looking at going into honours and aren't quite at the required score yet. So if you were hoping to use the grades from honours to go up a few points, that's not necessarily possible. You might be able to negotiate that, but I probably shouldn't promise anything, because I'm not really sure if that's something that can be negotiated by looking at your host university transcript, which will definitely show how well you did in your studies. It just can't show on your CSU transcript. Achievement ducks, yep, certainly put all those sorts of things in, captainship, and that can be, it can be your local netball, football club as well. It doesn't have to be anything university related. So again, make sure you think outside the circle of just CSU and just awards and merits and those sorts of things when you're looking at your achievements. Claire, I don't think, unless a scholar would be open to sharing their nomination form, I don't have permission to release them. So I think the short answer for that is no. But in saying that, I'd encourage you to perhaps even send your nomination form to someone like Dylan or another scholar to let them have a look over it and say, yep, you're doing great, you're on the right track, or maybe tweak a little bit here and add this in there. So unfortunately, we can't share someone else's form for privacy reasons with you. And again, in volunteering, if you've got recent volunteering experience, that's great to share that. If you haven't and you want to reference something from a little bit longer ago, by all means do that. We don't want to inadvertently, I guess, make someone less competitive by saying it has to be nothing older than, 2018. I don't want to disadvantage you in any way at all. So put down what you feel is relevant. If you can make it as recent as possible, great. But again, if there's something that you really want to highlight, make sure you put it in regardless of how old it is. How are we all going? I think I think we're going to call it quits. So if you do have any more questions, please email them through or put them on the events page as well. I know Dylan's got to get back to his other life, and as does Louise. So thank you all for staying so long. And I wish we could stay all afternoon, but we just have to sign off at some stage. So again, yeah, thanks for joining. Please come back to me or CSU Global with any questions you might have, and we'll certainly help you get as far through this process as we can. We, keep growing our scholar numbers every year. So let's see if we can make 2021 the biggest year that we've had yet. So thanks everyone, and I'll end the recording now as well.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.